Hello and welcome to Inside Music Curation. We are the team at Feed Media Group. We are a music as a service platform that curates and integrates and helps businesses license music. And today we're talking about workout music trends from 2022 and what that turns into mean for tips for 2023. I've got a great group of our music curation team here today. I've got Mike, Stens, and Claire. Thank you for joining us. And let's dive in and talk a little bit about what happened in the world of fitness music or workout music this year. I guess I want to kick off by just, putting the big numbers out there. We power music for a lot of digital fitness apps. And over the last 12 months, we streamed 730 million songs to 7 million unique digital fitness app users. So bravo, congrats to you guys for, curating these amazing music stations that are powering these workouts. That's a lot of music that we're pumping out, and it gives us a lot of data. So bravo, first of all. Any big first impressions coming out of 2022?
Exciting to see so many people working out. That's even increased. So more people working out, more people to play music for. So yeah, love it.
Yeah, even in just sort of the transition as more gyms have reopened in person, the fact that digital platforms are still thriving as well. You've got hybrid work models, and I think people have sort of adopted a hybrid workout strategy as well.
Awesome. Yeah, and I just think that it's as the long timer here with the company, it's just thrilling to see the numbers grow so substantially, and we are just so grateful to our fitness customers. They, we're standing on the backs of giants here as far as the actual fitness companies that make all these amazing workouts possible, and also the tech stack of our engineering team and whatnot. So it's exciting, and with more music played and with more customers comes more variety of music. So it gives us an excuse to explore more and more of the vast amount of music that's out there, that's being produced, that's being put into the world. It gives us an excuse to go play with that, and that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, 100%. I think that brings up a really great point, right? I mean, digital fitness had obviously a huge boom throughout the pandemic. And I think it was interesting to see, if you think about the demographics, about the first people to maybe jump on the digital fitness bandwagon and what demographics those might align with. Now that it's been around for a few years, the hybrid models are being adapted. We're seeing more programs for a variety of different, age ranges. We're seeing digital fitness for kids, digital fitness for seniors, and that changes, the music that we're curating as well. So I think that's a great point. I know one thing that came up this year was, even just pop music itself has seen a greater diversity in the music that's coming out. Do you guys want to speak to some of the changes we've seen in pop music, which is traditionally one of our top genres in fitness?
Well, I can start it off by just saying that, and we've talked about this before, and we've written about it as well, but in the late 2010s, pop was really slowing down and getting kind of glum and downcast, and 2020 so far has been up and up and up. And so I think that the tempos of pop music right now are really well aligned to the type of work we do, because even though we do curate yoga and stretching and cool down and the whole component of workouts, the lion's share of the programming that we do is around HIIT and cardio and fairly intense workouts. And so having the music to correspond to that in the pop space is really helpful, and it allows us to directly use that music without necessarily waiting or hunting for the remix. The original versions of these tracks in many cases absolutely does the job. And beyond that, I think one thing that we've been watching with excitement is the continued variety and diversity of music that is pop or that is making it onto the Billboard Hot 100. And I think I'll hand it off to Claire, because as one of our veteran writers / curators, she's done some really interesting just perspectives on what are the genres and other styles that are coming into the forefront right now, Claire, that you see and that you're excited about that we're using in fitness?
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about pop music is it kind of gets to become this amoeba that incorporates the best of all of the genres and sort of those influences well. So we definitely saw a lot of more like dance influenced pop. Obviously, Beyonce's album was like, here you go, if you want a blueprint as to like what sort of direction we should be moving the needle, like, follow Queen Bee, can't go wrong there. And then, we saw a lot of punk influence in pop and punk pop, and, Machine Gun Kelly gets, a lot of notoriety for sort of making these two sort of more pop punk albums and really bringing that genre back. And Travis Barker's being featured on as the drummer on many up and coming new artists. And then, even big hits like Good For You is, everyone's like, that sounds like Paramore and all that sort of stuff. So you're seeing a lot of those influences as well as, kind of interpolation of past hits, which I also think is really interesting and as like a blueprint for chart success of having that familiarity and a new take on a once popular song as well.
Well, and I want to speak to that a little bit too, because we've found both this year and in our last year report, we've got the Feed FM workout music report coming out next week. And this is our second year publishing this. And we found right away that, the most popular or most streamed songs in fitness are generally a year or two old, right? Like it takes a little bit of time to get traction and people want to work out to music that's familiar. So we saw this year, Montero from Lil Nas X, Kiss Me More by Doja Cat. And we had BTS, Olivia Rodrigo, coming up in the top 5. And most of these came out a year or two ago. But, what does it mean for, the interpolation and the sampling happening now? Do you think that we'll start to see pop songs get to the charts faster because there are familiar elements in them? Or will we continue to see that kind of lag?
I think we'll see it. And, I feel like two of the things that I noticed, from sort of our clients is that there's been more of a demand for throwback stations, and kind of back to what we spoke to earlier, where the younger demographic, that was the first to kind of jump into using fitness apps. Now some folks that are a little bit older starting to warm up to it. They want to hear more familiar songs just in general, even with radio. The older demographics want to hear familiarity, so they're requesting the throwback stuff. They're the ones that are gravitating towards the new songs that are interpolated, that are familiar in bits and pieces. So I think that as more upper demo folks embrace fitness apps and fitness devices, we're gonna see more of a demand for familiar music for sure.
I think that's backed up statistically as well in terms of, I remember reading a stat that was like your, like what you define as your taste in music is like solidified by the time you're 30, of like, that's your music. It's like, it's not like and I think obviously for us as curators, we get a little bit more flexibility and just, being open to that stuff. But like for most people, that's the music that they most strongly like identify with, is like from that period of life. It's not always like genre or, just general sound. It has to do with that age of like what the style of music was popular at that time as well, which I think is really interesting.
And I'm sure we could do an entire episode on throwback. Now I'm thinking maybe we should. But like, what are some of the elements, that we put into our throwback stations?
So, I think that throwback is so fun because you can slice it and dice it so many ways. You can slice and dice it literally by decade, which is a common way of doing it. We also have other customers that they might just want one throwback station. So it's just like a throwback jams, which is an umbrella. And then we have to get a little bit more specific about, what years are you looking for? And it's usually like a 15 to 20 year swath. And then you sometimes have customers, which are a lot of fun, where they want to have a dedicated, throwback hip hop station or a throwback pop station, and so you can get really much more specific, with what the category is that you're dealing. But I think, in general, for the ones that are, throwback jams or more of the umbrella style, it's, anything from clean, radio friendly hip hop that were hits then, to strictly speaking pop, to some of the rock songs that became big hits. And so a lot of it's just knowing what was the hot music at that time. Like the 80s, the hot music was synth influenced rock music, whereas the late 90s, early 2000s pop music was very hip hop influenced. So it's a really fun space to work within throwback, because there's a broad canvas, and then you can kind of drill it in or drill it out depending on what the preferences of the customer are and the end user. Like, to the point of Claire, like, what are the tastes of the end user? What are their demographics? Like, if we know that most of the end users for this fitness platform are age 20 to 35, is going to be a much different flavor of throwback than if the end user is typically age 35 to 50.
Right on.
I also find it's a fun place for the like one-hit wonders to live, because those get like so iconic for certain eras. And there is just this sort of like extra surprise and delight aspect with like a song where you're like, it's just so iconic of the time. It's the only one by that artist I want to hear. And it gives you that little like nostalgic burst of memories to kind of distract maybe if you've got a harder portion of your workout happening.
Well, and Stents, you made a nod too that, in late 90s pop was a little more hip hop, and it sounds like that's a trend that we're seeing again now. Can you guys speak a little bit more? We talked about, pop is upbeat and it's at the tempo that we want. There's some punk influences, but let's talk a little bit about some of the hip hop influences we're seeing in pop this year.
Mike, do you want to set it off?
Well, I mean, I can start it by saying that generally speaking, it's been a lot slower tempo than in years past. It's been harder to find those sort of mid to upper tempo hip hop songs that are lyrically, sort of G-rated for, the fitness space. But yeah, it's however, what I also have noticed is that a lot of the more fun, more up-tempo hip hop stuff is coming from the female artists. It's coming from Megan Thee Stallion, it's coming from Latto, it's coming from Doja Cat to a certain extent. But there's a list of up and comers as well. So that's really exciting to me.
Yeah, we've talked a lot. I mean, as one of the resident hip hop heads in the company, we talk a lot about the excitement of seeing more diversity of hip hop artists, that it's not just so exclusively male dominated, and seeing a groundswell of really awesome female hip hop artists like the ones that Mike mentioned, and including others like Sweetie, and I think you did mention Latto, but obviously Lizzo too, making great hip hop music. And then also others like Lil Nas X that, proudly and defiantly break the mold of what a male hip hop artist should be. And that's awesome too. And just to go a little bit on a Lil Nas X geek out for a minute, is that he breaks the mold in terms of his identity and normalizing that, and opening up the tent more broadly in hip hop music and inviting more people in, which we love, we want, but also without conforming so strictly to the genres of hip hop. Because like a lot of his stuff is, pop or rock or this or that. And he acquits himself beautifully. He can do it all. And I'm going to say one more thing is Doja Cat too, is like chef's kiss, because she can make a pop song where she's fully singing and she can rap her ass off. She's a modern day Missy Elliott. So I think that's, to me, is where it's more exciting in hip hop right now, and which is not to disparage on like the Futures and the Drakes and those, but to Mike's point, a lot of those kind of more old time hip hop artists now, the mainstay artists like those, some of their music is still a little drowsy to always play well in a fitness context.
Right on. And we had talked last year a lot about trap music, right? And I think trap music had a big effect on hip hop. Now we're seeing more hip hop in pop. We're seeing more females. And, the thing, if last year we were talking about trap music, it seems like this year we're talking about reggaeton. So can you guys talk a little bit about, using Latin music this year and trends that you're seeing on that side of things?
Yeah, I think with the proliferation of a lot of Latin music and reggaeton into more like mainstream English speaking culture in the US is huge. The fact that those hits are getting played on your like regular top 40 radio station is like a huge sign of, in the same way, like people are more open to watching like Netflix content in other languages, they're also open to good music in other languages as well. In addition to there obviously it's speaking to a significant portion of the population as well. So yeah, it's been really fun to see those artists and that community really being celebrated and leaned on for their innovation in that space, and being able to, yeah, collaborate with both Spanish language artists as well as English speaking ones, and given us some great hits in the meantime.
It's pretty hard not to move when there's a reggaeton beat happening in the background. Let's throw that out there as well. It fits the digital fitness space very well.
You get sad. It's impossible.
I think one more thing with reggaeton, which has been fun for all of the reasons that Claire mentioned, is that with more acceptance and awareness and just mainstream penetration of reggaeton, and thanks to Bad Bunny for that, I would say, not exclusively, but boy, he's broken down that wall to a big extent. It makes it more accessible to our fitness listeners. Like, they want that, they expect that. I think for the last several years we were starting to see reggaeton come up in the pop charts and the American music listener awareness, but it wasn't yet to the point where it necessarily played well in fitness, just because our users would sometimes skip them more regularly. Or also, I would say, because a lot of those are really mellow, some of the grooves can be really mellow in that 95 to 105 RPM space, BPM, excuse me. But I think more so as people hear that music on the pop stations, they don't care if it's a little bit mellower. They want to still hear that in their workouts. And then also reggaeton is continuing to diversify stylistically. So we're having, simultaneously with our end users wanting to hear more reggaeton, we're hearing more variety of reggaeton, including some intensities that we can use more in the core segment of workouts, not just in the, cool down and warm up segments. And we love that. Again, the more music we can curate and program, the better. I mean, I'm keeping an eye on Afropop, and I'm not the first on our team to say this. Our colleague Armando, who isn't on this call, he spotlighted it a year ago. He's like, Afropop is the next thing, and we're starting to see that bubble up. So I think the more variety that we can see like that, it's good for us as curators, and it's also good for diversity and just hearing more variety of voices and representation, in the music that we curate.
Well, and let's speak a little bit to that arc of the workout, right? In our year-end report that's coming out next week, we talk specifically about sound tracking the workout arc, right? It's not just about having high intensity music, but you've got to have the warm up and the cool down. You've got to prepare your body for what's coming next. What are some of the either challenges or trends that you guys are seeing as you help our customers cater to the other segments of the workout and beyond?
I'm excited to see literal requests from our clients to create specific stations for them that focus on alt R&B or neo soul. Artists like Kate Tronada, Salt, Steve Lacy, Blood Orange. It's sort of lower BPMs. It's a little bit more mellow, but it's great to kind of get your stretching, get yourself ready, or cool down. Yeah, you just finished the workout, but you need to stretch out a little bit. This is where you're going to go. And so it's nice to see that if our clients are asking for it, that means that their customers are asking for it. So it's exciting to be able to share that music with them.
That's right. Yeah, I'm a Chill Beats subscriber. When I go to the music, if there's a Chill Beats, like that's my kind of pace when I'm working out. So I can see, and there's a big kind of bloom happening with R&B right now. It seems like in like you said, alt R&B, samples coming out from previous hits. Any other trends you guys are seeing there that that fits the more, slow to mid-intensity workouts?
I think just, yeah, paying attention to, I think there can be, even in some of our stations, we tend to lump like quote unquote slower and like a lower BPM range for both warm up and cool down. But I think stylistically, those are very different. In terms of like the warm up, you still want the like a little bit of like positive self-talk energy vibe, like get you moving kind of a thing. And even though it will have a similar BPM range, the cool down is, yeah, a completely different segment of tracks. And that like you really like, yeah, want something that'll like help your heart rate come down. And then like Mike said, it doesn't like, and you liking chill beats, it's not, well, we have like a lot of great ambient and all that sort of stuff too, that's not for everyone either. And people want choice in those as well for that part of the workout.
Yeah, absolutely, Claire. I mean, I think with regards to, well, 2 points you made, the idea that warm up and cool down are different, distinct parts of the workout. I mean, the music that we curate can functionally perform in similar ways, but ideally it's different. Like, one of the things we were prompted before this meeting is, what are some of your favorite songs of the year? And so for workout, a couple of my examples that kind of manifest that point you make is that a great workout, or a great warm-up song to me is Break My Soul of Beyonce. That gets me ready to go. It's not like peak intensity, but I'm getting into my workout core and it gets me inspired, to do a great workout. And then a great cool down song is Freedom by John Baptiste, which is a little bit slower. It still has energy, but it fits more onto the lower end of that arc. And then another thing I would say is that, we, for our stretching components or yoga components of the workouts, we can provide a blended combination of tracks that can hit the majority of the end users. But ideally, we have one variety that's ambient, that's like hella mellow, right? For your more traditional yogas and for you're going to be in a pose for a long time. And then we have one that's more of like down tempo, it has pulsation and it's more instrumental, but like there's more energizing here. And then there's like a whole third tranche of people that they don't want the kind of anonymity of those styles, which they want to still hear music, pop music that they know and love. They might want like an indie chill or an acoustic pop station. So you got even a lot of variety within a very specific, seemingly niche type of workout like yoga. There's still a pretty broad swath of musical styles that can work well and that different people will prefer.
It's good to, when we're able to have conversations with our clients and they tell us about who their users are, that helps us formulate, okay, you know what? I think you're going to want this type of warm up or cool down genre style, Just depends on the user.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when we talk about our music curation process, it always starts with the end user, right? Like you guys and our customer success team, we're all working together with our partners to really identify who we're curating music for, understanding the modes, the types of workout, the brand. We talked last episode about sonic branding. Music curation, takes all of these, pieces of the pie into consideration in choosing the right music. But hopefully you find this helpful. We've got our report coming out next week. Make sure to follow along on feedmediagroup.com. You'll see, the top 10 fitness songs, new releases, best songs for warm up, mid intensity, high intensity, yoga, all going to be inside the report. I think you guys did a great job of kind of wrapping up what we saw this year. Taking that, moving on to 2023, what do you guys want to leave folks with that are working on their workout music strategies for 2023?
If there's just one note I would say is more choice and more control. And so, the choice is essential for aligning the music that's served with the end user's preferences, which you don't always know. You can make an informed bet, but you don't know for sure. So giving more variety of stations for them to choose from is good. I curate pop most of the time, but when I work out, I don't want to hear pop. I want to hear more aggressive hip hop and rock music, and that's just me. So you need to make sure you're giving, outliers like myself maybe what I prefer. And then the control part also comes into giving, functional ways that they can control the playback so that they can skip songs if they want. It may not be convenient for your modality. If you're a rowing, fitness station, okay, fine. Like that's not functionally appropriate. But in most cases, having skip functionality is helpful. And it also allows you to know with more precision, like, oh, they really don't like Doja Cat, I guess. I mean, most people do, but they don't want to hear Doja Cat. So choice and control, really important if you can provide that to your end users.
I feel like to be a winning, successful fitness app or a fitness device, if your main focus right now is on, high intensity interval training, or just really, get the heart pumping ideas and modalities, start to think about offering things like yoga, meditation, things that are a little bit slower, a little bit more wellness driven, a little bit, even a little bit more mental health driven, just music to kind of chill out a little bit. I think that's going to be important.
Yeah, definitely seeing the shift in and an ability for people to soundtrack more of our customers' day. And as we talked about earlier, right, demographics are changing. Digital fitness is evolving, and our demographics are getting wider. So having more choices in music, having more choices in intensity. Anything else you can add there, Claire?
Yeah, I think we touched on it a good amount earlier, but just don't ignore the classics as far as either throwback stations or classic rock. I know I've seen specifically with a few of my clients, the classic rock station is now the second most streamed after pop. So I think that's reflecting of the demographics, and yeah, they're classics for a reason.
Awesome. So successful, digital fitness music strategies in 2023, people want choices, giving them options of different stations, maybe that include throwback, maybe that include Latin music, expanding from fitness to wellness. But really, it all comes down to knowing your audience and interacting with them, and whether you've got functionality built in like skips where you can get data back, or you're polling customers, or just having discussions in communities. It's really all about the end user. And if you have any questions about how to come up with the best strategy for your end user, we would love nothing more than to talk more about that. So please look us up. Again, we're the team at Feed Media Group. You can find us online at feedmediagroup.com. Subscribe, tune in. We're here every other week talking about all things music curation. And we'll be back in a couple weeks talking less on the fitness side, but tapping into our expert music curators and really finding out, what music stood out in 2022. So looking forward to that in a couple weeks. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for participating. Have a great one.